Senator Bernie Sanders, sanders.senate.gov, of course, his website. Bernie, welcome.
Good to be with you, Tom.
Great to have you here with us. Before we start taking calls, you've been busy this week.
It has been an incredibly busy week. Let me just summarize some of the work that's going on here and some of what my office has been doing. We had a very interesting hearing yesterday on a subject, Tom, that doesn't get anywhere near the discussion that it needs. And that is that, as the census report data showed, poverty in America is increasing. We now have some 46 million Americans living in poverty. And I think when a lot of people think about poverty, they say, well, that's unfortunate, it's too bad. People are living in not good housing, they don't have a good car, they don't go to the movies on Saturday night, their kids don't have good clothing. But here was the point of that hearing. The title of that hearing, which involved a number of very brilliant physicians from around the country, was that poverty is a death sentence. It's a death sentence. If you are in the bottom 20% quintile of income earners, you are going to die 6.5 years earlier than if you are in the top 20%. If you're in the bottom 20%, if you're poor, you're going to die 6.5 years earlier than if you are upper income. A study from Harvard University indicated that some 45,000 Americans die each year because they don't have health insurance and can't get to the doctor on time. By the time they do get to the doctor, it is often too late. If you have a college degree, you will live 5 years longer than somebody who has dropped out of high school. Infant mortality rates for African American families is twice that for white families. So what you are looking at is not just an increase in poverty because of this Wall Street caused recession. You are also looking at more and more people dying earlier than they should, because in fact, in this country today, poverty is a death sentence. And then on top of all of that, what we also have, and what a dubious distinction that is, we have by far the highest poverty rate, childhood poverty rate of any major country on earth. Denmark, the much maligned Scandinavian model, Denmark, it's about 3.6%. Many of the other countries in Scandinavia, the poverty rate for children is under 7%. In our country, it's 21.6%. France, Germany, under 10%. That means you have a whole generation of children who are not getting the nutrition, not getting the education, not getting the nurturing that they need to go out in the workforce and become productive, tax-paying citizens. So we are investing heavily in wars. We give huge tax breaks to the wealthiest people in this country and to the largest corporations. But uniquely in the industrialized world, we have over 20% of our children living in poverty. So that whole issue of how you address poverty is an issue that does not get a lot of discussion, Tom, because many poor people don't vote, and certainly low-income people are not major campaign contributors. So what happens to poor people does not get discussed unless it is discussed by the right wing in terms of making poor people a political football. Right. Second of all, yesterday, as I've talked on this program in the past, we introduced very significant legislation. We talk a lot about Social Security. Social Security is not going broke. Social Security has not contributed one nickel to the surplus. According to recent reports, Social Security has a $2.5 trillion surplus, can pay out every benefit owed to every eligible American for the next 28 years. What I did yesterday is introduce legislation with 6 co-sponsors, did a press conference with Barbara Boxer of California, Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island, 2 of my 6 co-sponsors, Peter DeFazio of Oregon, who is introducing the same bill in the House. What this bill does is lift the cap on taxable income for all people who are earning above $250,000 so that they will pay 100% of the FICA tax on all of their income, which is what 94% of the American people currently do. Right now, if you're making $50,000, you pay 100% of the FICA tax on your income. You're making $106,000, you do the same. You're making $1 million, you're paying only on the first $106,000. If you do that, If that legislation is passed, Social Security will be strong for the next 75 years. End of discussion. Good for your kids, good for your grandchildren, maybe even your great-grandchildren. That's what we've got to do.
Yeah.
Last point. We are working hard on, obviously, the major issue of our time, a jobs program. Real unemployment, 16%, 25 million people unemployed or underemployed. What do we have to do? In my view, what we have to do is invest very, very heavily in our crumbling infrastructure. Obama mentioned that in his speech. He's right, but we have to do even more. The fastest way to create decent paying jobs and rebuild our country is by investing in infrastructure. We can put millions of people to work, not just blue collar workers, not just laborers, but engineers, scientists as well. Second of all, I think you have to rebuild our energy system. You create jobs doing that. Thirdly, the most controversial element, we need to change our trade policies. Obama is wrong. The Bush trade policies should not be continued. We need a new direction in trade. We've got to demand that corporate America, which has outsourced millions of jobs, starts reinvesting in America, not in China. So those are a few of the things that are taking place in D.C. right now.
That's marvelous. Let's pick up some phone calls.
Let's do it.
Okay, Heidi in Bellevue, Washington. You're on with Senator Sanders.
Hi. Bernie, I just had a baby August 22nd, and we named him John Bernard, and after you. And
oh, my goodness.
He'll grow up to be a good man, and we call him Baby Bernie. And I just wanted to let you know, as I said, before, so he'll have a good role model.
Heidi, let me just jump in and say I am very moved by that. That is incredibly kind of you. Congratulations on the baby, and thank you very much. That is a wonderful honor.
I want you to do so much for us. I wanted to do something for you. And we also thought it was a cute name. But I also wanted to tell you I had an unplanned C-section, and just kind of how our medical system is broken down. In my state, you're discharged after 2 days from a C-section. I was bleeding through the incision, so they had to go back in. So I got an extra day in the hospital. But it's incredibly painful. You can hardly walk or sit up, and you're sent home to take care of a newborn and your other children. And I think that's sort of a sign of how broken down our medical system is. My daughter goes to a French immersion school, and all of her teachers come from France. About half the families are French, and they said, that absolutely would not happen in France. You wouldn't be sent home so early. But I think that's another way our medical system is broken down, and yeah.
Well, Heidi, congratulations on the baby, and I think your criticism is right. I know how difficult family members of mine have had. My daughters have had cesareans operations, and you're right. So, congratulations, and thank you very much for that great honor.
Shelley in Greenville, Mississippi. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes. Hi, Tom. I just want to first say that I enjoy your show. I watch it every day. And to Mr. Bernie Sanders, thank you very much for everything that you do. You seem to be a handful of people who seem to really care about people in general. I'm one of those people. My husband and I don't have insurance, and I don't know, with not even being 40 yet, I feel like I'm dying a slow death. And sometimes the normal people out there lose hope. My husband works 50 hours a week. We try to be good people in society, and it just seems that if you get sick enough, you go to the emergency room, which is a roller coaster because they tell you need to see specialists, to get your problem fixed. There's tests that need to be done. So you take what medicine you can get that day, and then you have this huge bill, and it's a roller coaster because your credit's bad then. Even though you've paid everything else that you was supposed to your whole life, these big medical bills come in, you can't pay them, so therefore your credit's ruined. And you're still in the same place because I still need so many tests done that I can't even begin to find out what's wrong with me. And it scares me that even if I did know what was wrong with me, what would I do then? What would be the answer then?
All right, Shelley, let me ask you, is Shelley still on?
Yeah.
All right, Shelley, first of all, thank you very much for the call. And I want you to know, and I thank you for the call because I know that it is not easy to talk about what's happening in your life and the lives of your family on a television and radio show, which millions of people are listening to. But it is enormously important that you do that because, Shelley, what I want to say to you is the story that you have just told us goes on in every state in the country, that millions and millions of people are going through the same pain. And by you voicing those concerns, it brings people together, makes them understand they are not alone, and it helps us address the absurdity of our healthcare system and the problems of our economic system. So thank you very much for your courage in telling us what you have told us.
Thank you, Shelley. Thank you, Bernie. We'll be right back. It's 45 minutes past the hour.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Brunch with Bernie with Senator Bernie Sanders. More with your calls for the senator right after this, a day early. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and Maggie in Ben Lomond, California. You are on the air. Thank you for watching Free Speech TV, by the way. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Good morning, gentlemen. The point I'd like to make is that I really think that the Democrats need to get a strategy to deal with the people that are on the fence about social issues. And I think the best way to do it is with very clear information, which you just did. Thank you, Mr. Sanders. But I really think that the president should use audiovisual aids if necessary. Our budget, big two problems are the military, the wars, and health care. Social Security, as you said, brings in way more money than it ever pays out. And the American people are fear-based now, and they're listening to the media just spew out fear for the most part. And I think if you'd combat it with just facts, it would really put people that are on the fence over to the more socially conscious side. That's all I have to say.
Thanks.
Okay?
Maggie, thank you very much. And I agree with what you said. We have a situation now where, in my view, the media does, by and large, there are exceptions, a pretty poor job in getting straightforward information out to ordinary people. For example, most people would not know that when you talk about the deficit crisis we face now, that revenue coming into the federal government is the lowest that it has been in decades. That, of course, contributing to the deficit are the huge tax breaks that we've given the wealthiest people in this country, who are now paying the lowest real tax rate that they have paid in decades. That contributing to the deficit, as you've just indicated, are two wars that Bush undertook but forgot to pay for. Contributing to the deficit to some degree is the Wall Street bailout, is a Medicare Part D prescription drug program unpaid for, written by the insurance companies. And mostly contributing to the deficit is the fact that we are in a horrendous recession caused by the greed and the recklessness and illegal behavior of Wall Street, which has cost millions and millions of working people their jobs, who are now not paying taxes, small businesses, their companies, who are not now paying taxes. So you are quite right that we need to develop a coordinated effort to get the word out to the American people about why we are where we are today. And does the Democratic Party do a particularly good job at that? No. But second of all, it's not just how you get the message out, it's what you believe in. And let me be very clear. While at the same time we have got to fight against this right-wing extremism of Rick Perry and Michelle Bachmann and all of the rest, we have also got to hold President Obama's feet to the ground. And that it is unacceptable for him. And I think he's backing off to some degree, and that's a good thing, but we got to keep the pressure on. Tom, when I go to Wisconsin, and later on when I go to Iowa this weekend, what I am going to be asking the people there, the thousands of people coming out, is you tell this president, stop this absurd discussion of cutting Social Security or cutting Medicare or cutting Medicaid. That is not good public policy in the midst of a recession. It's not what the American working people need. And there are ways to deal with deficit reduction in a fair and progressive way. So we got to get the president square on what the important issues are for working families as well.
Yeah. And it dilutes the distinction between the two parties.
Of course it does.
Yeah. Senator Bernie Sanders with us. Sanders.senate.gov is his website. Right here on the Thom Hartmann Program on Free Speech TV and Pacifica Radio and other radio stations across the country. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Thom Hartmann Program. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour a day early. Bernie and I are going to be traveling. Bernie's going to be traveling to Madison for the Fighting Bob Fest, fightingbobfest.org, where he will be speaking on Saturday, as will I. And taking your calls here, Cece in Pagosa Springs, Colorado. Cece, you are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Good morning, gentlemen. A question, comment. How do we stop the corporate freeloading? They're taking advantage of our government, which they scorn at every chance they get, and then they're taking all our money. They internalize their profits. They externalize the expenses. We pay for everything. They pay for nothing. They need to be stopped dead in their tracks, and I'm afraid that the president and the current political system is not enough. The model is broken. We need a new model. What do you think?
Well, I think you're right, Cece. The model is broken. I think there are people who have the illusion that the United States Congress and the White House are able to regulate Wall Street and large corporations. The truth is quite the reverse. It is Wall Street and large corporations who regulate and control the Congress through their campaign contributions. The Citizens United Supreme Court decision will make a bad situation worse, and then you got all kinds of lobbyists running around here. So it's not the Congress that regulates Wall Street, it's Wall Street and their friends that regulate the Congress. You ask, how do we change that? There's only one way I know how to change that, and that is a broad, activated grassroots movement from California to Maine that demands that we elect people and we hold people accountable in Washington and our state legislatures who stand up for ordinary people, for a declining middle class, for those people who are slipping into poverty, for our children, for our seniors. They are the vast majority of the people. What we have in recent years, as the census data reveals as clearly as one can want to see, is the middle class is collapsing, poverty is increasing, and the wealthiest people are getting wealthier. The function of Congress is not to represent the rich and the powerful. The function of Congress is to represent those people who are struggling to keep their heads above water, to raise their families with a little bit of dignity, the seniors who are living on $14,000, $15,000 a year, our kids. That's the function of the Congress. And to do that, you do have to start standing up to corporate America. You got to make them offers they can't refuse. And that is, among other things, we got to change our trade policy. They want us to buy their products. When we purchase their products, they make huge profits. And yet we have got to demand that they manufacture those products here in the United States of America. The other thing that happened this week, Tom, is, as I mentioned on the show before, we've been dealing with the Smithsonian museums.
Right.
Here you have government-owned museums, wonderful museums. People should visit them when they come to Washington. Their gift shops were loaded with products made in China and other low-wage countries. We've been working with them. We're making some progress. I'm happy to tell you, remember I mentioned to you that the busts of George Washington and Barack Obama were made in China? Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? They're going to be made in America now.
That's great.
And we're getting some progress with other federal agencies. But bottom line is, these corporations can't stash their money in the Cayman Islands in order to avoid paying their fair share of taxes and then tell us we got to cut Social Security and Medicare to deal with the deficit. That is obscene, and the American people have got to fight back.
Okay. Howie in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Bernie. Hi, Tom. I'm the new dealer that called you about 3 weeks ago, and that $447 billion, the Obama jobs so-called creating budget. I would much rather have my government hire civil engineers and government workers to be on a government payroll to make sure that funding is distributed properly. You realize, I'm not a math wizard, but I did the math, and that's about 10 million jobs at $50,000 a year. Now, those people will be paying taxes on that income. I just think handing this money over to private companies is, I think the government's a better way to go on this thing.
Well, Howie, let me just,
we're going to take the money from the government, the administrative costs. I've worked for the Postal Service for 26 years, and it was a fair place to work, had good benefits. I think we need our government.
Well, Howie, let me just say this. Number one, by the way, in terms of the Postal Service, as you are aware of, we're going to have a huge fight on our hands. There are some people who really want to dismember that Postal Service. I'm not one of them. I want to defend it. The times have changed. The Postal Service has got to change. But I don't want to see hundreds of thousands of workers laid off. And there are ways that we can address that problem. But more importantly, I wish that I could tell you that the president's jobs proposal would create 10 million new jobs. It's not going to. The essential problem with the president's proposal are severalfold. Number one, a lot of that money, that $447 billion, is not going into investment. It's not going into infrastructure or schools, etc. It is going into tax breaks. And the evidence is pretty clear that tax breaks do not create the kinds of jobs that investment does. I agree with the president, as I said earlier, that we do need to invest in infrastructure, but of that 447, I don't have the paper in front of me, but about 60 billion, I think, 50 plus 10 to an investment bank goes into infrastructure. I would put more money there. I think he's right to talk about rebuilding schools. I think he's absolutely right in helping cities and towns and states make sure that we continue to be able to hire our teachers, our firefighters, our police officers, etc. We need to do that as well. But given the urgency of the moment, the president's proposal is not strong enough, and I'm going to do my best to see that it's stronger, that it in fact creates more jobs.
That's great. Senator Bernie Sanders, you can learn all about it over at sanders.senate.gov. Bernie, thank you so much for being with us today.
Tom, thank you very much.